What's up guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, the 2025 calendar has been dropped already, but we're going to make my own calendar. We're going to go through, we've got many tracks to choose from, but we're going to go for 20 calendars. I've tried to put them relatively in what area they are, and we're going to start off with round one, which should always be in Australia, the 5.278 kilometre track with 58 laps around the Melbourne Park. Should always be there, Albert Park, sorry. With 4 DRS zones, the first race in 1996, and the lap record of a 1 minute 20.235. This race always throws up an interesting moment, whether it be Russell's crash on the last lap last time round, or any other moment that happens around this track. Of course, this happened in the early 2000s, with Schumacher going over the top of the Ferrari. Round 2 though, and it's going to be the Malaysian Grand Prix. Of course, hasn't been on the calendar for a while, but 1999 it hosted its first ever race until 2017. The 5.543 kilometre track around the Sepang International Circuit would hold 56 laps and a lap record of a 1 minute 34.080. I have gone on back onto 2017 F1 game, my first ever F1 game, and we're going to go through this tight and twisty circuit to remind you of how good this track is. So it's a very turn 1 and 2 come back on itself, a long right-hander for turn 3 down into turn 4, and it is a heavy braking zone. Turn in, hit the apex. You can go wider there than I did. Again, another long left-hander going into a long right-hander where you have to brake a little bit, but again onto a mini straight before going back into another right-hander, double right-hander here, going out, coming back in, hitting the apex, going down, and now he got the tightest corner on the circuit. Big braking zone, a little bit banked as well, as you see me probably getting on the power a bit too early. A right-hander, as you can see the track in the bottom left corner, it does say round 2 over it, but and then coming back into another long sweeping corners, right, left, right, and then right once more before coming onto the straight, which goes back onto itself. So we got this straight, the first DRS straight of the lap, and then we're going to come up to, on the left you can see the grandstand, which wraps around this corner, the final corner. Missed the apex completely there, love that, and then onto the final straight, and that is a lap around the Sepang International Circuit. Of course you could probably go faster around it, but round 3 we're going off to Suzuka for round 3. The 5.807 kilometre track held its first race in 1987 with 53 laps. As you can see, the 18 corners around the Suzuka race has many dramatic moments in its history. Of course, Senna involved twice. Here you can see him winning the championship by being crashed into. Round 4, and we have the Turkish Grand Prix, the 5.338 kilometre track of Istanbul Park. First held a race in 2005 with 58 laps. It holds 13 corners. Of course, the legendary moment between the two Red Bull drivers, Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, crashing into each other. Round 5, and we have the Baku City Circuit, the 6.003 kilometre track has 51 laps, and first race was in 2016. Iconic moments everywhere you look around this track since its first introduction. Hamilton locking up in 2021, Ricciardo getting his win and his triple move down the inside at turn 1. Ricciardo involved again then in 2018 when he took out his teammate Max Verstappen. Round 6 we're going over to Germany for the 6.823 kilometre track of the Hockenheimring. It first held its first race in 1970. More iconic moments, as you can see that crazy 2019 race I've put up on the screen where Leclerc went off, Bottas went off, Hamilton went off, and here you can see the track. We're also, because this race hasn't been on since 2019, we've got another lap, this time on Forza Motorsport. Just because I've got the old McLaren from 1988 on here. It's a fast first corner, using the 5th gear and going down into turn 2. It is a heavy braking zone. Hit the apex, but it's difficult to get on the power here. As you can see, I lose it a bit there, and then don't hit the apex for turn 3. Going on to a long curved straight now through the 6.823 kilometer track. The lap record being a 1 minute 13.780. This is the most difficult corner on the track though, getting it slowed down, going into gear 1, going 30 miles per hour, then getting on the power once more is very difficult, as you can see, almost losing it straight up into 4th gear, and then a flat out right-hander as you go through there, and then into the Mercedes grandstand bit where you hit the left-hander, then there's another left-hander-ish you can just take straight, then a right-hander before you get into the main bit of the end bit of the circuit. This bit is very difficult, but here you can see this is the bit where Vettel went off in 2018, I want to say, when it started raining. And yes, a very quite tight bit of the last track of the track as you brake here, going into the final corner where you can carry a lot of speed through there, but of course in the 1988 car it's more difficult, and that is a lap around the Hockenheim ring. I did a 126.038. Now round 7 is the Monaco Grand Prix, the 3.337 kilometer track, the shortest of any first race in 1950, 78 laps to be held in a 1 minute 12.909 round the streets of Monaco. Of course, Leclerc winning it in 2024, many an iconic moment around that circuit. Round 8, and I have put Austria in Spielberg, the 4.318 kilometer track, first held a race in 1970, the 71 laps, and always crazy atmosphere and just crazy racing round there. Round 9, we have put the British Grand Prix Silverstone, has a 5.891 kilometer track, with 1950 being the first ever race in the Formula 1 World Championship. 52 laps around this iconic venue, a 1 minute 27.097 being the best lap. Many iconic moment, as I can see on screen. Round 10 is the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, the longest track of all on this calendar, a 7.004 kilometer track. Also first held its first race in 1950, 44 laps and a 1 minute 46.286. Of course, Fernando Alonso going over the top of Charles Leclerc in 2018, and then him getting literally overtaken by Romain Grosjean in 2012. Also, the mass collision at the start of the race then. Round 11, and we've got the Dutch Grand Prix. The 4.259 kilometer track made its return in 2020, but 1952 was the first ever race there, 72 laps, and of course, very necessary for the Dutch fans that have come increasing in Formula 1. Round 12, and we've got the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, of course, unrivaled fan base there, the Tifosi, the 5.793 kilometer track, first held a race in 1950 with 53 laps. Of course, iconic moments everywhere you look. Just an iconic track, of course. One of the oldest tracks, Hamilton and Verstappen crashing into each other in 2021 and letting the McLarens get their first 1-2 in forever. Round 13 though, and we've got Portugal round the Portimao circuit, of course, 2020 being its first ever race in the recent history of the track. A very undulating track that spans 4.653 kilometers with 66 laps taking up. As you can see, some pictures that I took when I went to Portugal, there you can see the 15 corners that make up the circuit. Round 14, we're going for Kyalami in South Africa, the 4.529 kilometer track. First held a race in 1966 with 68 laps, a 1 minute 41.425. We're back on Forza Motorsport though, this time in the McLaren once more of 1988. Hard braking into turn 1, probably a little bit slower than I need to and a lot more curve than I needed to take. But then once more you go up into turn 2, a little bit less power, but these corners are very difficult to take because of course if you brake while moving the steering wheel, you don't necessarily make that corner very well. Going up to 160 miles per hour though in this McLaren. That corner there, the right, is quite difficult to get right. Going into the left-hander now, down into gear 3, going 70 miles per hour, and then over towards the S's. This bit is very difficult to get right. Just about hitting the apex very late there, and staying on the power, and then coming off a little bit later. Probably not the best move going through there. Then this corner, coming uphill, blind corner, braking very late for me, and hitting the apex, getting back on the power, going a little bit wide though, but staying on track, going towards this bit of the track which could be flat out, and it probably is in modern cars if they return. Then heavy braking zone round here, which is a tight right-hander, going into a slight kink, which is a right-hander, then making our way towards the final corner, which is a left-hander here, down into gear 2, taking a lot more curve than I very much needed to, getting on the power and correcting it, and making my way around the track at 1 minute 33. Round 15 though, and we're heading off to Singapore for the Singapore Grand Prix round the streets of Singapore, a 4.94 kilometer track, first held a race in 2008. Of course, iconic moments everywhere, the crash on the start from those three there, and then of course this year Lando Norris just dominating 62 laps around that circuit. Round 16, and we're going to Canada for our American portion of the calendar, a 4.361 kilometer track, first held a race in 1978 with 70 laps. Iconic moments, of course, they can see the Benetton vertically the wrong way round. Of course, Ricciardo winning a race, one of his 8 wins in Formula 1, then that massive crash for Robert Kubica back in the early 2000s. Round 17, and we're going to America for the Austin Grand Prix, the 5.513 kilometer track, first held a race in 2012 with 56 laps. A very good track, I think, in America, and we're going to do a double header in America with Las Vegas, the 6.201 kilometer track, first held a race in 2023 with 50 laps. Of course, it's very difficult to see if this track is good, but it's had 2 very solid races, I would say, and I would keep it on a calendar for now. Round 19, continuing in America, it's Mexico City Grand Prix, the 4.304 kilometer track, first held a race in 1963 with 71 laps. Of course, it's iconic for the stadium section, had a crash there in 2024, and then Sergio Perez going up into the air in 2023, coming back to 2024, and we had, of course, Max Verstappen versus Lando Norris, a very important battle in the championship, with Verstappen getting penalised with a 20-second penalty for these 2 incidents on the same lap, forcing Lando off at turn 4 and turn 8. As you can see now, it's a very cool circuit, S-section, stadium section, and I think it is very good. Round 20, we have to finish one place, and it has to be Brazil, the 4.309 kilometer track, first held a race in 1973 with 71 laps. Iconic moments everywhere you look. Alpine double podium this year. The Ferraris colliding into each other in 2019, and going all the way back into the early 2000s, a massive crash for Fernando Alonso, hitting a tyre barrier, well, tyres from the tyre barrier, sent him straight into the wall, and a massive crash. So how do you think my calendar compared to the 2025 calendar? I've cut 4 races off, but I do like it. Of course, if you have enjoyed the video, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and make sure to keep uploading. And I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.